Welcome to my channel Starlight Sci-Fi Stories. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. The silence of the council chamber was oppressive, though it was built for grandeur. Glass-like walls stretched impossibly high, reflecting the pale light of distant suns through the orbital city. Ships passed overhead like slow-moving shadows, their hulls gleaming under the artificial atmosphere. Commander Elias Draven, the human representative from Earth, stood at the center of the polished floor, shoulders squared, heart drumming in the quiet that swallowed sound. He had trained for moments like this, yet nothing had prepared him for the weight of alien eyes. The Eldrin Council, 5 beings of impossible height and geometry, observed him from floating platforms, their forms shimmering faintly through the anti-gravity fields that kept them above the floor. Elias' uniform, plain and unadorned, made him look small, an oddity among their luminous robes and pulsing insignias. He was alone, and the chamber knew it. The tallest of the Eldrin, a creature named Kyrth, spoke first. His voice had a harmonic resonance that seemed to touch the floor and ceiling simultaneously. "You are the human, Elias Draven." "Yes, sir," Elias said, keeping his tone calm. His training emphasized clarity even under pressure. Even so, his palms were slightly damp. The council shifted subtly, a ripple in their light-like forms that suggested amusement or curiosity. Kyrth's eyes, deep and iridescent, regarded him with something that resembled calculation. "You come from a species that history marks as unpredictable." Elias inclined his head as he had practiced. "We prefer adaptable, Your Excellency." A quiet hum filled the chamber, and one of the other Eldrin, a smaller, more angular figure, flickered in color, a sign of approval or laughter. Elias couldn't tell which. "Adaptability alone will not grant you survival here," Kyrth continued, floating downward in a motion that seemed more a glide than a step. "Our worlds are not governed by luck, human. They are measured, calculated, anticipated." Elias' lips pressed into a thin line. "Sir, I've survived 22 campaigns across 3 human-led coalitions. I know unpredictability, but I also know observation, timing, adaptation." The council exchanged silent signals, subtle shifts in hue and geometry. Kyrth's eyes narrowed, or elongated, it was hard to tell. Observation without comprehension is mere data. Timing without context is failure. Adaptation without consequence is chaos. He paused, the words lingering like a physical weight. Elias understood the trap. One misstep, one word spoken poorly, and he would be dismissed, or worse. He chose honesty. "Then let me show you comprehension," Elias said. "Let me demonstrate understanding." For a long moment, nothing moved. Then Kyrth inclined slightly, and the other counselors floated closer, forming a tight semicircle around him. The floor hummed faintly beneath Elias' boots, as though it sensed the tension and adjusted to bear it. "Very well," Kyrth said finally. "We will observe your capabilities, not in theory, in practice." Elias' stomach nodded. "Practice, here, in the council chamber." "You will participate in the simulation of accord," Kyrth explained. "A reconstruction of conflicts past and potential outcomes. You will act as commander. You will live or fail within our parameters. Your decisions will be scrutinized, recorded, and analyzed. One error may be catastrophic." Elias nodded slowly. "Understood." At a gesture from Kyrth, the chamber shifted. Holographic panels erupted from the walls, forming a 3-dimensional projection that encompassed the entire floor. Stars, planets, and orbital debris appeared, their paths traced with perfect mathematical precision. A human fleet appeared at the center, small and vulnerable. The enemy, a multi-species coalition unknown to Elias, flanked from 3 sides. Sensors, projections, and predictive markers floated in the air like a storm of light. "You are outnumbered 6-1, Kyrth intoned. "Orbital support is minimal. Civilian populations must be preserved. Time is limited. Act." Elias stepped forward, scanning the projection. Every instinct screamed caution, but caution had killed many of his soldiers in his previous campaigns. He activated a control node and rotated the battlefield. If we retreat, we fall into the firing arc of the enemy. Advancing will buy us unexpected advantage. One of the Eldrin, sharp-edged and crystalline, flickered in color. You propose advancing into annihilation. Do you understand the risks? Elia's gaze remained steady. Yes, but predictability kills, surprise preserves. The council murmured, a ripple of concern or admiration. Elias wasn't sure. The simulation recalculated, data flowing faster than the eye could follow. Casualty rates spiked, then fell. His plan worked barely. Kyrth's eyes, if they were eyes, shifted to Elias. You disregard standard doctrine. I disregard predictable outcomes, Elias said. The universe is not predictable. A tense silence followed. Then, almost imperceptibly, the chamber seemed to lean forward, listening. The other counselors began asking questions, probing, testing, challenging his every choice. Elias responded with honesty and subtle humor, carefully measured. Every joke was a shield, every word a blade. Hours passed. Battles shifted and replayed. Simulations of planetary engagements, orbital sieges, and emergency evacuations played out around him. Elias corrected timelines, admitted errors, explained human improvisation, and accounted for luck. Slowly, imperceptibly, the council began to adjust. Their confidence did not vanish, but it thinned. By the time the final simulation concluded, Elias was exhausted. The holographic projections dimmed, leaving him bathed in the soft glow of the chamber's ambient light. Kyrth descended slowly, the motion deliberate and deliberate. Human, you survive where others fail, yet you do not carry yourself as a conqueror. Explain this. Elias considered, recalling the first battle he had ever survived. Survival is not triumph. Triumph is heavy. Survival is light enough to continue. A ripple passed through the council. Kyrth inclined again, slowly, deliberately. You are difficult to categorize. Elias shrugged faintly. I have learned over 22 campaigns that it is better to be difficult to predict than easy to label. The chamber adjusted itself around his words, as though the walls themselves were considering them. Kyrth's form shimmered, elongated, and for a brief moment, Elias thought he saw something resembling respect or curiosity pass through the alien geometry. You will remain as an advisor, Kyrth said finally. Not for your authority, nor for your strength, but for your perspective. The council will object, but you will remain. Elias nodded. Relief and tension tangled in equal measure. Understood. He was escorted from the chamber into a terrace overlooking the orbital city. The platforms hovered, sustained by fields that hummed faintly underfoot. The city below pulsed with light, ships moving like luminous insects along the orbital paths. He had survived the council's test, but he knew this was only the beginning. You deflect with humor, Kyrth said, stepping beside him. It is unusual. I use it to survive, Elias replied. Sometimes humor keeps you alive longer than armor or weaponry. The Eldrin remained silent for a moment, their gaze on the city. Then Kyrth said quietly, Your approach may change how we measure strength. Elias allowed himself a small, tired smile. It has survived 22 campaigns so far. The silence that followed was not uncomfortable but expectant. The future was uncertain, as it always was. But for the first time in his life, Elias felt a strange sense of clarity. His place among the stars, unpredictable as he was, mattered. Suddenly, a sharp alert sounded. A projection flared to life. An unidentified fleet moving along the outer system, cloaked and unregistered. The city's sensors had detected it, but details were scarce. Kyrth's form shifted, elongated in tension. Human, your perspective is needed immediately. The simulation is real. Elias' pulse quickened. The games had ended. Survival was no longer theoretical. His first real test with the Eldrin and against an unknown threat was about to begin. He stepped forward toward the edge of the terrace, the city lights below reflecting off his armor. This was no longer about observation. This was about action. "Lead the way," he said simply. Kyrth inclined once, and for a brief moment the alien geometry seemed to lean closer, as if to measure him again. Then, silently, they moved toward the command center. Elias followed, fully aware that the universe had just become a battlefield, and he was at the center of it. Outside, the stars waited. The command center was vast, unlike anything Elias had seen on Earth. Circular walls rose high, embedded with translucent panels that pulsed with real-time data from every corner of the orbital city. Ships, satellites, and outlying stations blinked into existence across the projections, each movement precise, calculated, but never quite as unpredictable as the humans who now commanded their attention. Kyrth floated near the main console, arms, or what resembled arms, folded. The fleet is unidentified. Their trajectory does not match any registered species or coalition. Elias examined the projections. Hundreds of vessels moved in formation, sleek and angular, their design unlike anything the Eldrin or humans had ever catalogued. Sensors could barely keep up. "They're avoiding the gravity wells," he noted, tapping at the interface. "They're testing defensive perimeters, waiting for a reaction." "You presume intent," Kyrth said. "This is unknown, we have no record." Elias shook his head. Intent is obvious in their pattern. They're probing, not attacking, yet they want to see how we respond. A younger Eldrin, sharp and crystalline, chimed in, voice humming with tension. "Our simulations do not account for this fleet. Predictions fail." Elias smirked faintly. "Then it's time for improvisation." Kyrth's elongated eyes, if they were eyes, narrowed. "Improvisation is dangerous." "Sometimes," Elias said, "it's necessary to survive." The human approached the projection of the outer system. He rotated the cluster of enemy vessels, watching the patterns carefully. "I need your fleets available, but do not engage yet. I want to see their priorities, their blind spots." The Eldrin Council hesitated. Kyrth's form shimmered, hesitant. "You risk the city and its citizens." "Yes," Elias admitted. "And I also risk them learning to anticipate me. We need unpredictability. That's our strength." The council murmured, some glowing brighter with agitation. Elias ignored them. He was used to tension. Humans had survived worse by focusing, not waiting for approval. Minutes passed. Sensors caught small deviations in the unknown fleet's pattern. A side vessel paused near an asteroid belt. Another altered course subtly. "They're testing us," Elias said. "They want to find weakness. Let's give them a pattern they can't predict." Kyrth tilted slightly, a sign of reluctant agreement. "Proceed." Elias issued commands. Human ships and allied Eldrin vessels repositioned, not in rigid formations but in irregular patterns, alternating speeds and distances. The alien fleets adapted, but their simulations could not account for human unpredictability. The enemy probed, found gaps, and had to recalibrate over and over. Hours passed like this. The unknown fleet advanced carefully, their movements precise, but human intuition began to tilt the balance. Elias anticipated not their weapons but their choices. "They value control," he said, voice low. "They avoid risk. They won't engage unless they're certain of victory. We need to force uncertainty." A young Eldrin officer blinked in surprise. "Uncertainty is inefficient." "Yes," Elias replied, "for them, but humans are different." He directed small squadrons to feint, then retreat, then circle back unpredictably. Alien pilots struggled to anticipate moves that made no pattern, no doctrine, and slowly the enemy faltered. "They hesitate," Kyrth noted, tension easing slightly. "They have never encountered such adaptability." "That's because they haven't," Elias said simply. "Humans don't follow doctrine. We survive by noticing what everyone else misses." The unknown fleet's formation began to fracture. One vessel made a bold move and was immediately isolated. Human pilots and Eldrin ships converged on it from multiple angles. The enemy vessel exploded in a silent flash, sending shards of debris drifting across the projection. Kyrth's form shimmered with what Elias interpreted as admiration or disbelief. "You did not follow protocol." Elias shrugged. "Protocol kills if applied blindly. Observation, flexibility, and timing keep you alive." For the next 12 hours, Elias guided the defense. Every move was counterintuitive, every command a test of his human understanding of chaos. The unknown fleet was forced into defensive patterns they did not anticipate. Systems overcompensated, weapons misfired, vessels collided. By the end of the day, the fleet retreated, leaving the outer system intact, but wary, cautious, uncertain. The command center erupted with data, projections, and analysis. The Eldrin Council reviewed every decision, their forms flickering with tension, then curiosity. Kyrth finally spoke, voice resonant but quieter than before. "You have altered the balance. You acted where our strategies could not." Elias leaned against the console, exhausted. "I survived 22 campaigns on Earth. I've learned the universe doesn't play fair. The key is adaptation, not domination." "You inspire," Kyrth said carefully. "Your approach will change how the Council measures strength." Elias smiled faintly. "That's the idea." The Council studied him in silence. For the first time, Elias realized they were not just watching his actions. They were observing his reasoning, his choices, his adaptability. Humanity in one individual had become a lesson for an entire alien empire. Hours later, Elias found himself alone in the orbital gardens above the city. The terraces hovered, connected by invisible grav fields, bioluminescent plants folding slowly under artificial stars. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the day settle across his shoulders. Kyrth appeared beside him, silent. After a long pause, the alien said, "You could have demanded authority, rank, weapons. You chose influence instead." "Authority," Elias said softly, "attracts bullets. Influence lets me keep people alive." The alien remained quiet, considering. Then, almost imperceptibly, its form flickered with approval. "Your perspective is valuable." Elias nodded. "I'm glad someone finally noticed." For days afterward, the orbital city adjusted to his presence. Humans were now rare and regarded with suspicion and admiration in equal measure. Yet Elias had earned something more than respect: trust. Even the most rigid counselors began to test their assumptions, ask difficult questions, and consider new possibilities, simply because one human refused to follow predictable patterns. The next week brought another challenge. Scouts reported activity at the far edge of the system, a cluster of unidentified objects, moving with intent but avoiding detection. Kyrth approached Elias privately. "This may be a scouting party or worse. You will lead the response," Kyrth said. Elias studied the projections. The ships were smaller, faster, almost ghost-like in their movement. "We don't know if they're hostile," he noted. "That is irrelevant," Kyrth said. "We do not risk the city." Elias smiled faintly. "That's one rule I understand." The response was carefully coordinated. Elias positioned ships to observe, to bait, to test. And when one small craft darted too close, he ordered a calculated interception, cutting off its retreat while avoiding escalation. The alien crew hesitated, unsure how to respond to a human who treated potential war as a puzzle to solve rather than a battle to win. By the time the encounter ended, the fleet had been diverted safely from the city. No shots were fired beyond warnings, and the unknown party had withdrawn. The council, reviewing data afterward, was astonished. "You did not destroy them," a crystalline officer said. "No," Elias replied. "Destruction is permanent, survival is adaptive." Kyrth regarded him quietly. "You have not only survived, human, You have taught us to see differently. Elias allowed himself a tired smile. I only showed what humans do naturally. We survive, even when others believe it impossible. Weeks passed. The city resumed its rhythms. Fleets patrolled, the council debated, and Elias continued to advise, never demanding, never boasting, always observing. Yet the influence he carried grew quietly, like a current beneath still water. One evening on the terraces, Kyrth joined him once more. The stars above the city shifted slowly, casting pale reflections on the alien architecture. You could have taken command, Kyrth said softly. I could have, Elias admitted, but command is heavy, influence is lighter and often more effective. The alien considered this. You are remarkable human. Your species survives because you bend, adapt, question, and laugh. Elias chuckled. Humor preserves you, pride kills. The alien's form shifted, subtle admiration in its geometry. You have changed an empire without firing a single weapon. Elias looked at the city below, lights tracing patterns across the orbital paths. Sometimes, he said, survival is louder than victory, and sometimes being human is enough to teach the universe a lesson. Kyrth inclined slightly, acknowledging the truth in his words. You will leave eventually, human. The city, the council, the fleets, they will endure without you. Yes, Elias said quietly, but I hope they remember the lesson. And then, for the first time since arriving, Elias felt a lightness he had not known in years. Not triumph, not conquest, not authority, but the quiet satisfaction of having survived, having influenced, and having reminded an empire that adaptability, humor, and humanity could be just as powerful as technology or might. The stars waited beyond the orbital windows. Elias Draven would leave someday, but until then he would stand, not as a conqueror, not as a soldier, but as a human who reminded the universe that survival favors those who think, who bend, and who refuse to be predictable. For the council, the city, and the unknown fleets that might one day return, that lesson would echo long after his departure. And for Elias, it was enough. The orbital gardens pulsed with faint light, the hum of invisible grav fields beneath their feet, the city below glowing like a living network. The human soldier turned away from the railing, letting the quiet settle around him. The universe remained vast, dangerous, and unpredictable, but for now humanity had left its mark.